Autumn softens the world before sharpening its edges, gold leaves falling, days growing shorter, the faint scent of rot beneath the sweetness of cider. The season flips quickly. Cozy turns precarious. Neighborly feels predatory, and every porch light might be hiding something waiting for night. The Missing Scarecrows. When Mason's mom and stepdad went on their honeymoon, he wasn't trusted to watch the house for the week, so they sent him to his Uncle Ronnie's farm. Uncle Ronnie lived there with Aunt Susie and Mason's cousin, Ronnie Jr. Mason stayed in their spare bedroom upstairs. It was an old wooden farmhouse. It was big and nice, though. The spare bedroom overlooked the crops and the numerous scarecrows his uncle had peppered across the field. This was in mid-October a few years ago, and Uncle Ronnie was mid-harvest on his corn. He asked for Mason and Junior's help. Weirdly, it wasn't tedious work. Mason actually kind of enjoyed it. His uncle wasn't using the combine. Instead, they were hand-picking a huge amount of corn. Mason had this little rolling basket he was supposed to fill up. He took a moment to admire the 3 scarecrows. They looked like Uncle Ronnie had put a lot of work into them. They had sweatpants and varying flannels along with straw hats over their heads. When they were done picking, Mason asked Uncle Ronnie how long it took to make them. Ronnie said a few hours at most, and that they really did the trick in keeping the crows away, for the most part. That night after dinner, Mason played video games and smoked a little weed with Junior for a bit, then went up to the guest room to mess around on his laptop. Next thing he knew, a rock or something slammed into the window. It scared him badly. There was no way that wasn't intentional. He didn't want to look out the window, though. He just closed his laptop screen to keep the room pitch black. He crossed his fingers it wouldn't happen again. But when a second rock smacked the window, Mason's heart felt like it dropped out of a plane. The room was still completely dark, so he waited a minute before getting up to peek out. There was a full moon, and one of the outside lights was on, which helped illuminate the crops and one of the scarecrows. He continued looking around, but then something moved in the periphery of his vision. When Mason looked back at the scarecrow, one of its arms was waving at him. No, surely he was hallucinating. The waving stopped, and the arm dropped back down to its side. Mason shut the blind and felt like he was going to vomit. He ran to Junior's room and opened the door, but his cousin was already fast asleep. He closed the door and checked downstairs for his aunt and uncle. All the lights were off, so he checked their bedroom. They were also both asleep. Mason went back to his room and lifted the blind just enough to peek out. The outside light was off now, but the bright moonlight let him see that the scarecrow was still hanging on its post. He watched that window for over a minute, waiting for it to move again. But the longer he waited, the more he told himself he must have been more high than he realized. Finally, he dropped the blind and climbed into bed. The next morning, Mason went downstairs to find Aunt Susie making pancakes for everyone. Uncle Ronnie was already outside working. Aunt Susie called Junior down before the pancakes disappeared. At that same moment, Uncle Ronnie stormed into the house shouting, "Where did the goddamn scarecrows go?" Mason's heart sank. The 3 of them followed his uncle outside. Ronnie pointed to show them that all 3 scarecrows were gone from their posts. That's when Mason told him what he saw last night, how, at first he thought he'd imagined it, but how it all made perfect sense now. The nightmarish realization hit him. Someone had thrown rocks at his window. They had seen him looking out, and someone had been posing as a scarecrow. That night, when they were all sleeping, the doorbell rang continuously around 1 or 2 in the morning. Mason heard his uncle and Junior yelling and running down the stairs, so he followed. When Uncle Ronnie opened the front door, the 3 scarecrows were propped up right in front of the porch, all covered in red paint stains mimicking blood. His uncle called the police and turned on all the outside lights. The police and Uncle Ronnie chalked it up to some stupid early Halloween prank by a bunch of immature kids. But the possibility that it wasn't and that the motive behind it was much more hostile was what truly freaked Mason out. Pumpkin at the door. Lauren was a behavioral therapist at a local psychology office. She had been practicing for 5 years and had dealt with hundreds of clients. She used to think she'd seen everything, but she didn't realize how wrong she was until a young man named Peter became her client. Peter was 15. His father, Tom, always attended their sessions with him. Tom believed his son had an autism spectrum disorder or some type of social disorder due to a lifelong struggle with making friends and socializing properly with peers. During sessions, Lauren tried to engage Peter by talking about his hobbies and goals, attempting to get him to open up about his personal life. It was difficult at first because he was extremely quiet and shy. She would occasionally ask Tom to step out to discuss Peter's family life more privately. Peter clearly opened up more when his father wasn't present, but Lauren always got the distinct vibe that Tom preferred to stay in the room. She learned from Peter that his parents fought almost every night for as long as he could remember. He came from a very small family, with no siblings or cousins. For Lauren, the fall season was everything. She was obsessed with anything pumpkin. Pumpkin biz, pumpkin pie, pumpkin spice lattes, she just couldn't get enough. During one session, they discussed the crisp autumn weather outside. Peter mentioned it was his favorite season, and she told him the same, largely because of her obsession with pumpkin-flavored things. But later that night, while she was already in her robe getting ready for bed, there was a loud, insistent knocking at her front door. Lauren never got knocks past 9, so she felt an immediate surge of panic as she went to check the window. There was no one there, but when she opened the door, she saw a mini pumpkin and a bottle of pumpkin-flavored coffee creamer on the ground. She knew instantly this was no coincidence. Only a few hours ago, she had told Peter about her pumpkin obsession. When her attempted call to Tom the next day didn't go through, she texted him a picture of the items, explaining how inappropriate and uncomfortable it was for a client to follow her home. Tom texted back within 10 minutes, immediately saying his son would never do something like that. He sounded genuinely offended by her accusation. It briefly made her wonder if it was just a gift from a neighbor. The week went by and Lauren debated whether she should terminate her therapeutic relationship with Peter. But she decided to wait and see how the next session would go. The following Monday, Peter and Tom came in as usual. Peter seemed normal. He was actually quite happy to talk to her now. However, Lauren realized he might be developing feelings of attraction towards her, seeing her as possibly the only woman who spoke to him with respect. During the session, she mentioned the little gifts at her door with a smile, subtly hinting at the coincidence without direct accusation. She instantly noticed Tom getting annoyed in the corner by her bringing it up. Peter acted genuinely shocked and agreed it was a huge coincidence. It was a truly bizarre situation, and she was unsure how to proceed. She decided if it happened again, she would definitely have to terminate their relationship. 2 nights later, there was a knock at Lauren's door again while she was in the living room watching a movie. Her heart instantly sank because she knew exactly what was coming. She checked the window, no one. She slowly opened the door and sighed out of disgust when she saw even more pumpkin-flavored things on her stoop. This time, it was a pumpkin pie, pumpkin Cheerios, and pumpkin Oreos. It was past 9 o'clock. She took a picture and sent it to Tom again. Lauren was about to start typing a text explaining that she could no longer see them, but then she heard a phone ding a text received right to her left, in the bushes in front of her house. She started walking slowly toward the sound, whispering Peter's name. As she got close enough, she saw someone hiding in the bush, but it wasn't Peter. It was Tom. They made direct eye contact. He smiled and said, "Hi, Lauren. You look beautiful as always." And she screamed. She ran inside and slammed the door shut, locking it seconds before he tried the handle and started banging. Lauren screamed for him to leave, or she would call the police. He apologized through the door, yelling that he was leaving. She watched through the window as he walked to his car and drove away. This explained not only the unwanted gifts, but also the sound of her side gate closing in the middle of the night weeks prior. Lauren had no idea how long he had been stalking her at her house. Her brother, who was a police officer, advised her not to bother trying to get a restraining order. He said there wasn't enough evidence that Tom meant her direct harm, and it would likely just be, she said allegations. However, Lauren did file a police report and added a note that Peter might be in an unsafe or abusive household. She didn't know what Tom's end goal was by stalking her and leaving those gifts, but the way he tried to open her door right after she locked it suggested he wasn't trying to be a romantic. She felt terribly sorry for Peter. His father had only brought him in as a means of getting closer to her. The Thumping Upstairs. It was a Friday night in early October, a long time ago. Alex was with 3 friends, Jose, Brian, and Tanya. They were just bored teenagers looking for something to do to get into the spirit of the season. It was a great fall night, low 60s. Nice breezes, so they wanted to be outside. Nothing ever happened in their boring town, and they certainly weren't old enough for bars. They decided to bike up Miller's Road to this old, closed-down pumpkin farm, nicknamed Farmer John's Pumpkin Patch. It was a literal farm, surrounded by crops on one side and forest on the other. The alleged Farmer John, or whoever owned it, didn't live there anymore. The land had been sold, and the new owner had done nothing with it for years. It was a 20-minute bike ride up Miller's Road, an incredibly quiet road with barely any traffic, just cornfields and farms for miles. When they got there, they rode their bikes off the road and onto the grass, all turning on their flashlights. They leaned their bikes up against the abandoned house where the owner used to live. They walked around the overgrown yard, checking out the former pumpkin patch and the little petting zoo area. Exploring abandoned places at night felt really cool to Alex, but also kind of spooky. They went back to the house where they left their bikes. Breaking in was relatively easy since they clearly weren't the first ones. The door was already off its hinges. All they had to do was kick it open. This was where it got seriously creepy. Being inside an abandoned house at night was unnerving, even for a thrill-seeker like Alex, and even with 4 of them together. They were only 5 minutes inside when they started hearing thumps from upstairs. They were periodic, deliberate thumps, not random sounds. Jose and Alex decided to head upstairs to check it out. Tanya was too scared to go, so Brian stayed downstairs with her. When Alex reached the top with Jose, the thumping was definitely much louder. It was coming from the left side. Their flashlights revealed several doors up there, all open, probably leading to old bedrooms. Their footsteps echoed loudly as they walked toward the room. There was no way to hide their approach on those rickety, creaky floorboards. As they reached the doorway of the corner room, the thumping abruptly stopped. Alex whispered to Jose, "Is it an animal?" Jose just whispered, "Shh." Alex swept the flashlight across the room, starting from the left. He froze when the light landed on a male figure in the corner facing the wall. There was what appeared to be blood smeared on the wall in front of him, confirming he was likely banging his head, creating the thumps. Jose aimed his light at the figure too. Both of them yelped and scrambled backward. They left in a hurry. As they flew down the stairs, a horrifying, gut-wrenching scream ripped from the room they just left, causing all 4 of them to scream. As they burst out of the house and sprinted for their bikes, they heard heavy stomping coming down the stairs, and the screaming got even louder. They all scrambled onto their bikes, absolutely freaked out. They pedaled as fast as their legs could carry them. The screaming stopped right before the person could reach the outside door. None of them looked back once. They kept pedaling all the way down Miller's Road until they got back to Alex's house. Alex still had no idea what they witnessed in there, and he wouldn't even try to explain it. Almost taken. When Sam was little, a local small amusement park used to host an annual event called Pumpkin Land on the Saturday before Halloween. They gave out candy between rides, and pumpkins were scattered throughout the park for families to take home. Sam always looked forward to it. One particular year when he was 7, his family went right after his soccer game. Since the park rewarded costumes, Sam was wearing a cliché Scream costume. His parents took him and his 2 brothers. As soon as they arrived, his brothers immediately begged to go on the haunted house ride, followed by the roller coasters. Basically, they wanted the most thrilling rides first. His mom and brothers got into one of the haunted house cars. Since the cars only seated 4, his dad stayed with him on the line so they could ride next. But as Sam started getting cold feet, he realized he urgently needed to use the bathroom. They got off the line, and his dad led him to the restroom. His dad went in as well, but Sam finished first and waited outside. He waited for a while, growing confused. Finally, he went back in and his dad wasn't there. That's when the panic set in. He was alone in a massive crowd, and at 7 years old, he was genuinely terrified of being lost. Then, a man approached and asked where his parents were. Sam told him he couldn't find his dad and asked for help. The man took his hand and said, "We're gonna go find them." Sam remembered the man's grip tight and firm. Suddenly, the stranger pulled out an archaic Nokia brick phone and started talking to someone. The main thing Sam recalled him saying was, "Oh, I'm with him right now," while looking down and smiling. Then the man said, "Okay," and hung up. He looked at Sam again and claimed that was his dad on the phone, waiting by the parking lot. He continued leading him, but even at 7, Sam wasn't naive. He knew his dad didn't own a cell phone. This stranger probably didn't know him at all. Plus, how could he possibly know who Sam was under the scream mask? As they neared the park's front gate, Sam spotted a female employee. He started yelling, "Excuse me! Excuse me!" until she finally noticed. Then he shouted, "I don't know him! Please help!" The man defended himself, claiming he knew Sam's dad and was just trying to lead him to him. But the employee took Sam's side, telling him to stand with her so she could use the loudspeaker to find his parents. The man didn't stay another second. He quickly walked away into the parking lot. The employee announced over the intercom that a child in a Scream costume was missing his parents and gave Sam's name. Seconds later, his dad came sprinting over, waving his hands, an absolute nervous wreck. The employee informed him of the potential predator and the possible attempted kidnapping. That's when his dad completely lost it. When his mom showed up, she was just as furious. His parents asked the manager to see the surveillance footage, but according to him, the amusement park didn't have any cameras at that time. Still, they profusely thanked the employee for getting Sam away from the man. They tried to have a normal day after that. Sam was too young to fully realize the severity of the situation he had just avoided. Remembering it as an adult, it was a lot more sickening to think about. The empty chair. It was November. The leaves were varying shades of yellow, and orange Dane's favorite time of year to visit the countryside. He was with his girlfriend at her dad's upstate home. It was usually a summer place, but they had come up to go camping in the nearby woods. The house had all the necessary supplies, including the tent. They parked, grabbed the gear, and headed into the woods. Why? Dane guessed it was just for the experience of sleeping out there. He had only been camping a few times, but he loved going in the fall fewer bugs, and of course, nothing could beat the foliage. They set up in a small circular clearing, just big enough for the tent and campfire. They sat around the fire for about an hour, eating and talking, before heading inside the tent. They kept the fire going because it made Dane's girlfriend feel safer and added warmth. Besides the sound of the crackling fire, they soon started hearing leaves crunching in the distance. They looked at each other. She put a finger to her lips. Dane could tell she was nervous. Fires usually repelled wildlife, so as the crunching got louder, it became suspicious. The steps sounded distinctly bipedal, like a human walking. The crunching grew louder until it stopped right by their fire. Then, they noticed the shadow outline of someone standing out there. The figure sat down on one of the chairs but remained completely silent. Dane finally decided he had to peek out and check. He looked out at the campfire, expecting to see someone sitting, but the chairs were empty. He stood up to look around the entire campsite, scanning the trees in the darkness. He didn't see anyone. His girlfriend was whispering his name, urgently trying to get his attention. He crawled back inside. She immediately whispered, "What does he want?" "There's no one there," Dane replied. She shot back, "What are you talking about? I see him in the chair right now." Dane looked at the tent wall and saw the shadow outline of the person still sitting by the fire. He realized the profound impossibility of that sight. He crawled back out of the tent for one last look. Both chairs were empty. He scrambled back inside and urgently told his girlfriend, "We need to go. Right now." She didn't ask questions. She got straight up, grabbed his hand, and followed him out. When she saw the chair was empty, she let out a piercing scream. Dane yelled at her to shut up. He led them, stumbling through the near-total darkness, back in the direction of the mobile home. As they ran, they heard a horrible, guttural groaning sound not too far away, followed by a single, loud crash like a massive tree branch snapping. This caused both of them to scream, "Oh, shh," and run even faster. They found the property by repeatedly pressing the car lock button until they finally heard the horn. They burst into the mobile home, locked the door, and hid under the covers in the safety of the bedroom. Dane still didn't feel entirely safe. Surrounded by woods in every direction, he was paranoid that whatever was out there had followed them. He let his girlfriend sleep while he stayed up, listening for sounds. He thought he heard a faint clicking sound from the front door, but told himself it must have been paranoia. He finally fell asleep. When they woke up, they went back for the tent and supplies, scared shitless the entire time. Nothing was moved, except for the one chair they thought they had seen the shadow sitting in. It was knocked over. They hurried back to the car, drove straight home, and that was their last camping adventure. The Hayride Strangers. When Leo was little, his family visited a top-of-the-mountain resort twice. It had shut down long ago, but he remembered it as a very nice, family-friendly place. Both visits were in the fall, because his mom loved the changing colors of the leaves. This story happened during their second trip. Leo thought he was about 6 years old. His older brother Corey was around 10, and his little brother was 4. His parents focused most of their attention on the youngest, naturally expecting Corey to keep an eye on Leo. On this particular night, the resort was hosting a bonfire, marshmallow roast, and hayride. They had already taken a hayride while the sun was setting. Next up were the bonfire and a mini fireworks show. At the bonfire, Leo met a man who started talking to him, asking if he was having fun and if he had been there before. The man claimed to be one of the owners. Then he gave Leo a little laser pointer toy. Leo instantly trusted him because, well, he was 6. The hayride driver announced a final late-night ride that would include driving down the big hill, which sounded exciting. Corey suggested they do it, then disappeared to find some friends he'd made to join them. In the meantime, Leo stayed by the bonfire. His dad was drinking beer with a friend on the other side of the fire, and his mom was with his little brother roasting marshmallows. Eventually, Leo went to ask his mom where Corey was. She said Corey was getting on the hayride and told Leo to hurry up before it left. He hurried to the small line of about 5 people. When he got on, there were maybe 15 to 20 people inside, but he didn't see his brother. He sat on a haystack anyway, just as the truck started up, indicating it was about to leave. He saw the man from before climb in, followed by a woman. The man immediately came to sit next to him when he spotted him. The man asked where Leo's family was, and Leo shrugged. Corey never actually got on the hayride, by the way. The woman sat next to the man. She looked at Leo and smiled. The man told Leo she was his wife. He asked if Leo still had the laser pointer, and Leo showed it to him. The man smiled again. The entire time, the man and his wife were focused on Leo, talking to him the whole ride. As they approached the big hill drop, where the driver said he was going to floor it, the man saw Leo look nervous. As they drove down, he grabbed Leo's arms and lifted them into the air like people do on roller coasters. It actually made Leo laugh. The drop was fun. The man asked if Leo had been to the resort's arcade yet. When Leo shook his head no, the man claimed he had the master key to all the games and asked if Leo wanted it. Leo immediately shook his head yes. The man said they just had to go get it and then go to the arcade, and the key would be all Leo's. They left the truck one by one as they got back to the bonfire. The man and woman walked alongside Leo. The woman held his hand, repeatedly calling him sweetie whenever she spoke. The man said the arcade wasn't far. As they walked away from the brightness of the bonfire and into the darkness of the path leading to the main buildings, Leo heard Corey's voice call his name from behind. Leo turned. It was Corey looking at them. He yelled back, "We're going to the arcade!" The man and woman glanced back but didn't say a word. Corey didn't follow them or say anything else. After they got further from the bonfire, the woman's grip on Leo's hand got noticeably tighter, and they started walking faster. Something felt horribly wrong. Her grip was starting to hurt. Leo also noticed they weren't heading toward the clubhouse. They were heading straight for the parking lot. When he asked where they were going, the man just said, "We're getting the key to the arcade games." The next thing Leo remembered, he heard his mom's panicked scream from behind. "Let go of him!" She came running over, completely hysterical. The two strangers immediately stepped away from Leo. He remembered the woman spouting some excuse like they were taking him to the front desk. His mom yelled and cursed at them, and the two of them just vanished quickly into the darkness. Leo wished his dad had been with her to kick that man's A. The worst part was, they were free to just drive off and potentially do this to someone else. His mom asked everyone at the bonfire if they recognized the couple. Nobody did. She reported the incident to the resort and the police. But truly, what could they do once the couple had disappeared? The idea that Leo was almost kidnapped by a creepy older couple when he was only 6 or 7 was stomach-churning even to this day.